Hey everybody, it is Mattie here with Altcoin Buzz with you on this Saturday, and I hope you're having a great weekend so far. Today we are back on visualcapitalist.com. It's a great website. We featured them before when visually comparing the world of cryptocurrency to the traditional world of finance and economics. They were looking at the 7 major flaws of the global financial system on visualcapitalist.com. I don't think we're quite going to get into the second article that they're featuring, but I wanted to tease it and perhaps, kind of table this, come back to it. But decentralized finance on Visual Capitalist, an emerging alternative to the global financial system. The finance section of Bloomberg is also saying that Bitcoin is probably here to stay, so that's encouraging. And then we have this forward from an upcoming book by Seyfedin Amos, and we'll let you know what they have to say about Bitcoin. It's a bit more of a literary take, I suppose, a philosophical one, but we'll tease that piece. It's a nice little bit of writing. Let's begin, however, with this update of the market. We're on CoinGecko.com. Total market cap sitting at 345 billion, pretty much flat versus yesterday. But as you can see, we're inching back up slowly after that pretty big flash crash. Bitcoin up a little bit, 3.3% to over 12K. We're at $12,149. Everything else is kind of marginally up. Ethereum's still up over $300. Litecoin, for some reason, up 8.7% on the day at just over $128. So Litecoin performing very well, as is EOS versus the rest of the pack. Okay, so we're looking today at the 7 major flaws of the traditional global financial system. I think there's an added element of, poetry or whatever you want to call it, but this article here is from a few months ago. It's written by Jeff Desjardins, and for those members of the Altcoin Buzz army that are in my neck of the woods, maybe you're Canadian, maybe you hail from the province of Quebec, as I do, you're going to recognize the name Desjardins. It's the name of a major bank that we have here in this area, and isn't it kind of appropriate that this article, not this one specifically, but going back to Visual Capitalist, this is outlining the 7 major flaws of the global financial system. And Quebecers especially are dealing with a major breach in customer data that Desjardins is responsible for. So this is a total tangent. I'm not going to get into this, but I will include these links in the description below. If you're interested, you can check out cbc.ca for what you need to know about the Desjardins breach. We're talking literally about millions of customer profiles that were hacked. Something like 2.7 million people, customers of Desjardins, were hacked, 173,000 businesses. This is a big story here that's broken over the course of the last few weeks. There is a major class action lawsuit that's being filed. No doubt this is going to cost Desjardins billions of dollars, and rightfully so. You can also check it out here on Reddit. Again, we'll link to these in the description below if you're interested. Anyways, just a little aside, but I thought that was very appropriate given the nature of what we're discussing. Okay, so of course, step 1, let's talk about the fact that traditionally banking monetary concentration has been centralized. That's been a hallmark of the major systems, the major institutions. That has been the paradigm, the concentration of control of an activity or organization under a single or very few authorities. That was their claim to power. That centralization is what lent them power traditionally. So with that context in mind, let's look at the first major flaw of the global financial system. It's the fact that at number 1, billions of people globally remain unbanked. And whether or not you're a fan of Facebook's Libra project, this is kind of what they're aiming to address. So to participate in the global financial sector, whether it is to make a digital payment or manage one's wealth, one must have access to a bank account. And around the world, globally, about 1.7 billion adults remain unbanked. That is a big problem. In this data from 2017, you can see the distribution. You even have quite a few, I think looks like more than 10 million people in the United States that don't have a bank account or bank account information, and hundreds of millions more around the world, predominantly, of course, as you see here in South America and Africa, quite a few in Europe, and many in Asia and Southeast Asia. Big problem number 2, global financial literacy remains quite low. For people to successfully use financial services and markets, well, of course, they must have some degree of financial literacy. And recent surveys suggest that only 1 in 3 people show this basic understanding of financial concepts. Again, looking at data from around the world in this color-coded map, you can see that North America and Northern Europe, as well as Australia, fare the best in terms of their financial literacy. But even there, you only really have people on the order of 55 to 75% that are well-versed in financial concepts. So even really in those best examples, those first world examples, you still have big chunks of people that probably don't know a whole lot about the financial markets, about financial mechanisms and instruments. And then similarly in South America, in Africa, in parts of Asia, you have a lot of people that just aren't educated to the extent that the rest of their brothers and sisters all over the world are. Here's one that drills right into the heart of cryptocurrency and this space that we all occupy. So at number 3, high intermediary costs and slow transactions. Once a person has access to global financial services, sending and storing money should be inexpensive and fast. However, it is not. And as you can see here, the average of people all around the world is 7.01% fees per transaction when sending or receiving money. Just scrolling down a little bit, the UN Sustainable Development Goal says that rate should be below 3% and sets a target for this average rate by 2030. Does that mean the US Sustainable Development Goals will one day embrace cryptocurrency or at least promote them tacitly? We'll see about that. It wouldn't be a bad idea in my opinion. Even the G20 are recommending that 5% should be the maximum fee. Bring that down from 7 to 5% and then eventually 3, again, according to the UN Sustainable Development Goal. And as I just discussed at the outset of this piece, at number 4, low trust in financial institutions and governments. And why should we trust the Desjardins of the world when they tell us that we can trust our data with them and then when it is subsequently breached? It's not acceptable. It compromises individuals, puts them in financial danger. And this idea of centralization is becoming more and more and more outdated. It's an anachronism that doesn't belong in a tech and a digital world anymore. At least in my opinion. Of course, I'm showing my bias, but there are many different reasons for low trust in both government, in the financial institutions. But as we saw at the beginning of this piece, that example that I raised, and you can read about it on cbc.ca, that's just one among many, unfortunately. As you can see here, the financial services sector is the least trusted sector among all of these major industries: consumer packaged goods, energy, fashion, healthcare, skipping ahead, transportation, retail, education, technology. Technology is the highest at 78%. Financial services, only 57% of people place their trust in the financial services sector. It is the least trusted sector. And in addition, most people remain distrustful of governments, especially in some Western and major economies. I am certainly a skeptical libertarian. That's kind of my bent. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I'm distrustful of both the financial institutions and the governments. And quite often they go hand in hand and exacerbate the problems of distrust by working with each other. At number 5, we have rising global inequality. So in a centralized system, global financial markets tend to be dominated by those who are best connected to them. So in fact, the top 1% own 47% of all household wealth, and the top 10% hold roughly 85% of all household wealth. Now, I'm not particularly opposed to the idea of concentrations of wealth. I think that's a natural byproduct of any system. So for example, if all of the world's finances, if all of people's debt were erased tomorrow and we all started at zero, unfortunately, the harsh reality is that we would still have winners and losers. We would still have people that worked harder. We would still have people that went into debt, whether it's through their own fault or not. And I think whether it's any system, whether it's any social system, whether it's redwoods in the middle of a British Columbian forest, whether it's a star cluster, you're going to have certain groupings that are going to accrue more resources and grow above and beyond and be the outliers in that system. So I don't think inequality, for me, it's not a problem personally. That's all I'm saying. However, we do have to do a better job of taking care of those at the lower end of the spectrum. At number 6, currency manipulation and financial censorship. In a centralized system, countries have the power to manipulate and devalue fiat currencies, and this can have a devastating effect on markets and the lives of citizens. Exhibit A, of course, in Venezuela, where the government continually devalued their currency, resulting in runaway hyperinflation. Venezuela printing money faster than ever. As you can see here, you have the hyperinflation effect of the Venezuelan bolivar that is accompanied by unrestrained, uncontrolled, undisciplined quantitative easing. And nobody votes in these bankers in the central bank institutions. Nobody really has a say in what they do. All you can do is earn your money, try to save it, keep up with inflation. But when you have these governments making these decisions that are based on the policies of individuals in high positions of powers, that are not based on mathematics, that are not based on, for example, Bitcoin algorithms, when you have people making subjective choices that impact the lives of all of their citizenry, you're going to have these situations. You're going to have failures. That's just how it is. There are many, many more examples in history well beyond Venezuela of runaway hyperinflation. Look at Zimbabwe, look at Weimar, look at other countries where also the effect is less severe. But to me, this goes hand in hand with distrust of governments and distrust of central banking policies. And finally, here to round it out at number 7, we have the buildup of systemic risk as the last major flaw of the global financial system. So centralization creates one final and important drawback. With financial power concentrated with just a few select institutions such as central banks and too big to fail companies, it means that one abject failure can decimate an entire system. And it's analogous to the idea of hackers, right? Trying to get into a centralized system versus a decentralized system. If you have a top-down hierarchical system in which points of failure exist and cascade all the way down throughout the rest of the subordinate nodes, you're going to have a problem as soon as something goes wrong. Whereas in a decentralized system, any one individual pain point is just that, one individual pain point. And if there is a systemic failure in one sense or another, you're going to have the support of the rest of the network that will prevent catastrophic failure. Not so in a top-down, hierarchical, centralized financial system, unfortunately. Of course, all kinds of examples exist. There are a plethora of them that we can talk about. Unfortunately, this happened in 2008 as U.S. subprime mortgages turned out to be an Achilles heel for banks' balance sheets, creating a ripple effect throughout the globe. And that basically shows us that centralization is equivalent to keeping all your eggs in one basket. So the point must be raised with the proliferation of mobile phones and internet access. Don't forget, more people have mobile phones and internet access than have bank accounts. So with that, as well as the development of decentralization technologies like the blockchain, it may be possible to build an entirely new financial system. Is the world ready? What do you guys think about these 7 flaws of the global financial system? I would love to hear your perspectives and your thoughts in the comments below. There's a lot of meat here. We didn't get into every particular graphic here, but I would encourage you all to go through them individually. Take your time to really comb through it. It's very contemplative, and I think it's going to resonate very well with our audience, with you all members of the Altcoin Buzz Army. And here we have another great piece by visualcapitalist.com about decentralized finance. I don't want to rush through this because this is just as rich and as thought-provoking as the last one. So how about we come back to this one perhaps on another day? We'll put a pin in that for now. Here on Bloomberg.com, you can also read about this on your own from their finance section. Bitcoin is probably here to stay. That's great news out of Bloomberg. All of a sudden, Bloomberg and Forbes are sort of cheerleading for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which is always nice. And here you have this piece on Medium.com. This is a foreword to the book by Seyfedin Amos. It may fail, but we now know how to do it. And again, if you're in more of a contemplative or literary mood, take a look at this article. It's a little bit different, but let's just highlight the main points here and emphasize the following. So Bitcoin is an excellent idea. It fulfills the needs of the complex system, not because it is a cryptocurrency, but precisely because it has no owner, no authority that can decide on its fate. It is owned by the crowd, its users, and it has now a track record of several years, enough for it to be an animal in its own right. That's our video for today, members of the Altcoin Buzz Army. Do be sure you're following us on all the regular social media channels and keep checking back into our website, altcoinbuzz.io, for all the latest developments. If you enjoyed this video, it was a bit of a different one, go ahead, like, subscribe, share, and hit the bell to receive notifications. It is Saturday. If you choose to invest, I wish you only the very best of luck, but I do hope you enjoy your weekend. And of course, make sure you come back and check us out in our next video. Take care, everybody. Have a great one.